Alrighty, good morning, everyone. I have 10, so we are going to go ahead and get started. Again, for those of you just joining, I'm Angela Ambrose Henderson. I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions at the University of Houston Law Center. I will be facilitating this panel discussion this morning, but for now, I'd like to turn it over to my Dean, Pilar Mensah. Pilar, you're muted. We can't hear you.
Sorry about that. Good morning, everyone. My name is Pilar Mensah, and I'm the Dean of Admissions at the University of Houston Law Center. And I just want to welcome everyone. We are really excited for all the Texas schools to get together and provide this online session for you. We know that it's a very challenging time right now, and there is a lot of uncertainty in all aspects of life, but possibly as well in your law school admission, whether that's for this fall or if you're looking for future administration. So many of you submitted questions in advance. Angela Ambrose Henderson will be going through those questions. We'll do our best to answer them. There were over 150 questions, and probably will not get to all of them, but you can always reach out to us individually to get your questions answered. And again, I hope the session goes well. I hope you find it informational, and we'll go ahead and get started and let Angela give us the questions.
Okay, great. Alrighty, again, so just sort of opening remarks and housekeeping types of things. Again, thanks for joining us. We appreciate the questions that you submitted. We received over 200 questions actually, and we spent a considerable amount of time reviewing and organizing the questions. As you can probably imagine, there were some duplicate questions and also some themes developed from those questions. Additionally, there is information that we feel that you would want to know that were not necessarily present in the questions that we will try to address today as well. We also recognize that there are a variety of participants this morning, ranging from current applicants, pre-law advisors, future applicants, and we will do our best to make this a meaningful experience for everyone. We want to share as much information as possible in the time that we have allotted for this session, which is approximately 90 minutes. In an effort to ensure that we get to as many questions as possible and to provide the maximum amount of information, select panelists will be chosen to answer certain questions. And where the practice is significantly different, other panelists may chime in. During this session, I'll be calling on the panelists by school name rather than their actual name. And lastly, we received some very specific University of Houston Law Center questions. Those questions may be answered during the course of this session. However, if at the end of 90 minutes they are not, you are welcome to remain on the call and we will cover those questions if they have not already been addressed. Also during the session, there'll be a few times where we will be seeking information from you. And we will do this via a poll that will pop up on the screen. And so let's try this out by sharing our first poll, Dean Mensah, the pajama question.
Okay, hold on, I wasn't ready.
Sorry.
Okay, I'm figuring this out. Yeah, maybe we should go on to something else and I'll let you know.
Okay, you just let me know. Not a problem. Okay, that's all right. We roll with it. It's Saturday morning.
Oh wait, I figured it out.
Okay.
Hold on. Awesome. Here we go. This is a fun one. Here we go.
Okay. If participants please respond.
They are responding quickly too.
Absolutely. Yes. It's almost even.
It is almost even.
It is almost even. My.
Okay. I think we got 80. Oh, okay. I'll give it another second.
Got some more votes still coming in. A couple more seconds to get your vote in. Got 134 participants. 115 of you voted. Anybody else want in before we close this poll out?
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and end it.
All righty. Thank you, Dean Mensa.
So let's see, I can share the results, I think. And it looks like a little more than half are wearing pajamas right now. So we know the polls work. Yay!
Absolutely. And for those of you not wearing pajamas, we don't want to know what you may or may not be wearing. All righty.
Okay.
At this time, I actually would like to begin by having each of the panelists introduce themselves and just indicate their title and what law school you are representing. So Ken, let's have you go first.
I'm first. Thrilled. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this session, this panel today. My name is Ken Moore. I serve as the Interim Director of Admissions at Thurgood Marshall School of Law here in Houston, Texas, and we're delighted to have you. I know these are challenging times, as my colleague just said, but these are also exciting times in the law. I tell people that 2020 is the year of the doctors and the grocery store clerks and the workers and the truck drivers. But I believe 2021 is going to be the year of the lawyers. We're going to see so much new litigation come out of COVID-19, bankruptcies, divorces for those of you who are home with your spouses right now. Lots of litigation about insurance companies, policy. We're going to need constitutional law experts. You know, our president says he has the ultimate authority to see who opens up the states, although we all know that's not true. We have governors and mayors clashing about reopening plans. So it's a very exciting time to be a lawyer. So welcome, and we hope we can answer all of your questions today.
Thank you, Ken. All righty, Catherine.
Hi, my name is Catherine Cassiano. I'm the Assistant Dean of Admissions at St. Mary's Law School in San Antonio. I used to be a family law attorney, so Ken's comments are making me think that that's maybe what I need to focus on for next year. So, but we are happy to have you. Thank you for joining us on a Saturday, and we look forward to your questions.
Awesome. All righty, Terrence, introduce yourself.
Good morning. My name is Terrence Cook. I serve as Assistant Dean for Admissions and Scholarships at Texas A&M School of Law. Thank you all so much for your time this morning, and we look forward to hearing from you and answering those questions.
Thank you. Sheena.
Good morning. My name is Sheena Brooks. I'm the Interim Director of Admissions at the University of North Texas. Wrong school. University of UNT Dallas. Let me just put that because you got my whole title out there. It's UNT Dallas College of Law. What school do I work at? No. Good morning.
Breaking news.
Right.
Oh my gosh. All righty, Danielle.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Danielle Saavedra. I'm the Assistant Dean of Admissions over at Texas Tech School of Law. We really appreciate y'all joining us for some coffee and questions this morning.
Thank you. Alicia. You gotta unmute yourself.
I did. I'm on somebody else's computer, so I'm learning it. Good morning, everyone. My name is Alicia Kramer. I'm the Assistant Dean of Admissions and Student Organizations at South Texas College of Law, Houston. And I appreciate you all giving up some of your Saturday morning to join us. We're excited to help answer all your questions.
Thank you. Jenny.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Jenny Branson. I'm the Assistant Dean of Admissions and Financial Aid at Baylor Law in Waco. I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad all of y'all are here. Look forward to chatting with you guys.
Thank you. Jill, please.
Okay, I unmuted myself. I'm Jill Nykirk, and I am the Assistant Dean for Admissions at SMU Dedman School of Law in Dallas, Texas. Glad to see you guys this morning. I'm actually coming to you from tiny blanket Texas right now, and so if you hear tractors in the background, my husband and I didn't really plan well for this, and so I will try not to make there be loud noises in the background.
Awesome. Thank you. And last but certainly not least, Matthew.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sheena Brooks from the University of My name is Matthew Lay, the Dean of Admissions here at the University of Texas, and I'm thrilled to be here, and good morning to everyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Now that we know who is joining us again, that'll be the last time you'll actually hear me use their names, and I will be referring to them and calling on them by the schools that they are representing. So let's just jump right into some of the questions. These questions, again, some of them have themes. They're not necessarily in any type of order. And again, they will be meeting the needs of everyone, regardless of their current journey or status in the law school admission process. And so one of the big ones, what is the median LSAT and GPA? I'm going to have each of you take that as I call you. So we'll start with Ken. What's the median LSAT and GPA for your institution at Thurgood Marshall School of Law?
Thank you. The median LSAT and GPA, we'll start with the median is 147 on the LSAT and a 3.1 GPA. And I'll just pass it along, Sheena, or the moderator.
No, go ahead, that's fine.
Okay, our median is a 151 and our GPA is a 3.1.
Awesome. Pass it off to someone.
Oh. Kathy.
So St. Mary's, we're median 151, 3.2 GPA. Pilar.
University of Houston Law Center, our median is a 160 and a 3.61. Matt, I pass it to you.
At the University of Texas, it's 168 and a 3.72. Jill.
Thanks. At SMU, our median LSAT was a 161 last year and GPA was a 3.72. Alicia.
Well, thank you, Jill. At South Texas College of Law, Houston, our median is a 153 and a 3.2.
You gotta pass it.
Oh, I have to pass it off. Who's left? Terrence.
Texas A&M reported a 159 and a 3.62 last cycle.
Alrighty.
Sorry, Jenny.
Texas Tech's median was a 155, GPA was a 3.4, and I'll pass it to Jenny.
Awesome.
Okay, Baylor's median were 160 and a 363.
Okay, great. And the follow-up question to that, and I'm just going to pass this off to and ask Terrence and Sheena to address this particular question. What happens if my LSAT is not in the median and the GPA is not in the median that you just indicated? Will I have a chance of getting in?
Absolutely. I think we're looking just at that, the median. And so if you're looking at those statistical numbers that are showing up in our ABA 509 reports, as we all have, as you will have access to on all of our websites, you also need to be paying attention to the 25th percentile as well. And that will give you a firm idea of the broader range. But even in looking at the 25th percentile LSAT and GPA for admitted students, you also want to bear in mind that there are a quarter of the students that are being admitted that are below those reported numbers. The last thing I'll say to you is that really you're looking at a combination of those numbers. So be thinking of them in terms of sliding scales. In the industry, we use terms like splitters. Those might be individuals that have that are reporting high LSAT scores and maybe a modest GPA or vice versa. It's rare perhaps that every single applicant being admitted is on that high end, that 75th percentile in terms of LSAT and GPA. So if you're worried about those individual numbers and things of that nature, then certainly start by looking at 509 reports, start by talking to admission advisors at individual schools and trying to gauge how your credentials might match up in regards to what that particular institution is looking for.
Great, thank you.
And to follow up on what Terrence said, you know, the thing is, we do a holistic approach when we admit our students. So we're looking at everything, you know, your letters of recommendation, you know, are they favorable letters of recommendation? Is your personal statement telling us who you are and why you want to come to our school? You know, so all those things go into play. And then also being forthcoming on, you know, if you have any flaws in your background, make sure you attach those addendums. We need to know all those things. So everything goes into play when we're admitting our students. You know, those medians give you, like Terrence said, a range of where the pool is coming from. So, you know, just try to hit our medians as high as you can and put forth the best packet that you can put in.
Great, thank you. All righty, our next question is, do you have any advice for those prospective students choosing to self-study instead of taking an official LSAT prep class? And I'm going to turn that over to my colleague from Baylor.
So I think people have been successful self-studying. I think kind of some advice that I give sometimes is look at all the options out there and see if there is a style of test prep that resonates with you. And then I think the most important thing is to put in the time. The most important thing when preparing for LSATs is taking a lot of practice tests, taking them in test-like conditions. There are a lot of free test prep materials now. LSAC partners with Khan Academy. There are several other ones that are reduced or not very expensive. So it also involves you knowing yourself. So if you are one of those people that has the discipline to take a bunch of practice tests and review your answers and learn from those answers, great. But if you're one of those people that needs somebody explaining answers to you, needs the discipline of having to show up for an online class, I mean, when you think about it, increasing your LSAT scores just by a few points can not only expand your range of schools, it can also expand scholarship offers. So if you think about spending a little bit of money on a class, if that's going to, significantly increase your scholarship offers, they're all there's kind of a cost benefit analysis you have to do. But certainly every year there are people who are successful self-studying. So I know that's kind of a non-answer. It depends answer, which is, you're going to hear a lot today. That's the best I have.
All right, thank you so much. All righty, our next question, and maybe I'll get in the reverse. It's about part-time programs. So if you do not have a part-time program, I would ask you to indicate, starting with Thurgood Marshall School of Law.
Unfortunately, we do not have a part-time program.
Okay. University of Texas.
We do not, unfortunately.
Alrighty, Texas A&M.
We have what I would characterize as a reduced course load day program.
Okay, you want to speak on that a little bit more?
Certainly. Quickly, we have suspended our former part-time evening program. We're teaching out there. And essentially, instead of taking a full-time course load, which would be about 15 credit hours for us, you'll see something of a reduced nature in terms of 11 credit hours or so. Okay. But it is during the day, traditional business hours, rather, 8 to 5.
Okay, awesome. St. Mary's part-time program?
Yes, we have a part-time evening program. Classes are held Monday through Thursday, 6 to 9 p.m.
Okay, University of Houston.
Yes, we also have a part-time program. It is Monday through Thursday in the evening from 6 to about 9 p.m. as well.
Okay, South Texas?
Yes, we do. The part-time program, we actually enroll students fall and spring. Let me just clarify that. But the part-time students are only considered for our fall admission. And again, classes 5:30 to 9:30, Monday through Thursday. We have a pretty robust part-time program. About 30% of our student body attends part-time. Most of them in the evening. In the beginning, it's only evening. There is some flexibility after the first 30 hours. If a part-time student wanted to take day classes as a part-time student, they would be able to do that.
Okay. Before I go to my other colleagues, I noticed there was a hand raised. Unfortunately, we will not be able to take questions that way. If we get to the end of the session and you still have questions, there will be an opportunity. I will provide a way for you to do that. So I don't want anybody to think they're being ignored when they raise their hand. SMU, part-time program?
We don't have a part-time evening program. We suspended ours, but we have something very similar to what Terrence described at A&M, a reduced course load day program where our students who come in, it's very, very few, but they might take around 9 hours a semester. And then with the intention of ramping up to full-time, it's so that they can complete the program in 4 years.
All righty. Texas Tech.
Unfortunately, we do not have a part-time program.
All righty. Baylor.
We do not have a part-time program.
Alrighty, and UNT Dallas.
We do have a part-time program. It's a 4-year program. It's Monday through Thursday from 6 to 10.
Awesome. I don't think I left anybody out. Another question, but I think my colleague from South Texas, she sort of got ahead for me, so I'm going to go ahead and ask it. It is about when can I enroll? Can I enroll in fall? Can I enroll in spring? So we'll just, we know that South Texas, you're able to enroll both fall and spring starts. I will answer for the University of Houston that we only have a fall start. SMU.
Fall start only for SMU.
Baylor.
We have fall, spring, and summer.
Awesome. Texas A&M.
Fall start only.
Thurgood Marshall.
We only have a fall start.
UNT.
All start only.
University of Texas.
I'll start only.
St. Mary's.
Fall start only.
And Texas Tech.
Fall start only.
All righty. Okay, our next question, again, it relates a little bit to the part-time program. For those of you that have a part-time program, the question is whether or not I am able to change to the full-time program after my first year. South Texas.
Yes, absolutely. The part-time students can change to full, and fulls actually can change to part. So there's a lot of flexibility. It does happen though just after the first year, because we've got to get you through the core curriculum first. So yes, you are eligible to change your status.
Okay. University of Houston.
Very similar answer. Yes, you can change after the first year from the part-time program, and that would be fall, spring, and summer. So after those 3 semesters, you can then switch to the full-time program. At that point, you would have 27 credit hours, and the full-time students would have 31 credit hours. So a part-time student would only be 4 credit hours behind at that point. So you could definitely catch up and still graduate in 3 years with the other full-time students.
Okay. For my other colleagues that have part-time programs, because I actually don't remember all of them, I was trying. If your answers are different than those of Dean Mensa and Dean Kramer's in terms of being able to switch from part-time to full-time, please unmute yourself and respond to that question.
So with hours, you have to, in the part-time program, you have to do at least 2 years. We changed it, so it's like the lockstep. And so you have to do at least 2 years part-time, and then you can work with the academic dean to switch over to full-time.
And ours is after the first 29 credit hours. And at that point you do, in some cases, have to meet with an academic dean just to get permission to be able to switch to the full-time program.
Okay. All right. Okay. The next question that we have is, how will pass, fail, / credit, no credit affect law school admissions? Let's start with the University of Texas.
So that's a great question, and it's a common question I think all of our schools are getting these days. And the short answer is that it's not going to really impact or make any difference whatsoever. The way that your grades will be processed through LSAC is going to be no different, with one exception. If you are attending school during the spring 2020 term or the winter 2020 term, what they're going to put in the CAS report is what they're calling a Dear Law School letter, essentially to remind admissions officers. I'm so sorry. I'm going to introduce to you to Pepper here. She's being a little needy at the moment.
That's awesome.
And so they're going to put this Dear Law School letter to remind all of us what transpired during the 2020 term. And so the schools are interested in the full academic arc of your entire academic career. We're not just interested in just one specific term's grades. And so pass-fail really, in my view, is not going to make that much of a difference. With one exception, I think that given this challenge in time, that if a student has a fail grade, that the committee is going to probably, want to seek a little bit more information about what happened. So, the assumption is that most students are going to have all P grades, right? And so they're not going to be calculated in your overall LSAC GPA. But if you have an F, then it gets a little bit more complicated. And so I would just, ask the specific schools what they would ask of you to include in your application, whether that's an addendum or some point of clarification. So that's how I view the pass-fail for the spring. And can you hear my cat in the background? I can't. Oh,
We can, but it's okay. Yes, we can.
I'll make sure to mute myself.
Thank you so much for that response. If any of my other colleagues have information to add regarding that particular answer, you can unmute yourself. If you don't, I'm going to go to the next question. Alrighty. The next question. What are you looking for in a personal statement? And I'm going to turn that over to my colleague at Texas Tech.
Thank you. Yes, great question. We get it quite a bit. So the first thing that I would say all schools are looking for is that you are able to read instructions. For each of the schools, one of the very first pages of our application is our law school instructions, and each school has specific instructions about the personal statement. Some do want you to answer a very specific question or set of questions. Others may have a more general and open prompt. At the end of the day, just about everybody that's applying either has an LSAT or a GRE score, they have a GPA. So we're looking to see who you are as an individual, what you can bring to our schools, what in your life has led you to law school being your next step. And so truthfully, that's what we're looking for. One, are you able to write well? Proofread, proofread, proofread. 2, are you able to follow instructions? And 3, just who you are as a human being and what you can bring to our school to enhance the experience of all of our students.
Awesome. Does anyone want to add to that response? Okay. Our next question is a very good one as well, and I'm going to turn that over to my colleague at St. Mary's, and it is, what are the do's and don'ts for being on a wait list?
Well, I think one of the big do's is let us know how interested you are. If at some point you are not interested any longer, please let us know. Because generally, and I can only speak for St. Mary's, but generally our waitlist process happens pretty quickly. So at that point, we're trying to reach out to those people that we know have not made a decision to go to another school. And so if you are truly interested in, and we send out a questionnaire when we put people on the wait list, and we ask them if they would like to be on the wait list, and if so, we let them know that we'll maintain contact with them. I think the don't is don't continually call an office. It's fine to ask maybe once a week, but we do have the people who call multiple times a week wanting to know if there's any movement, and generally most of us will tell you that as soon as we have space and can make those decisions, we will inform you because we need to know as well as you do a timely decision as to whether you can join us or not. So, I think we all try to do the best we can in trying to let people know, hey, we have a spot open. But if at any point you decide that that's not anything you want to wait for, then that is important just to let us know.
Okay, very good. Thank you for your response. Does anyone want to add to that question? Okay, next question is going to go to my colleague at Thurgood Marshall School of Law, and it is, as a potential transfer student, what can I do to make myself the best candidate possible?
It'd be your grades. The most important thing we look for in our transfer student, of course, outside the other application stuff, your personal statement, your resume, is the grade that you're trying to transfer in from the school that you're trying to transfer from. So we're going to take a very hard look at those. At Thurgood Marshall, we don't take any grades, or we won't allow any students to transfer grades that are below a C. In any course, either your contracts course, your torts course, or whatever. And those grades will be evaluated by our Dean of Student Affairs. So she evaluates all the grades and lets you know what classes will transfer to see if you still want to seek transfer. Because sometimes you may have 30 credit hours that you want to transfer, and all those credit hours will not transfer. But we will let you know that. So it's very important to start the transfer process as soon as possible. So that we can get you all that information, and that you can make an informed decision about if you still want to transfer and come to Thurgood Marshall School of Law or any law school that you transfer to.
Awesome, thank you. My next question is going to go to my colleague in SMU, And the question is, I will be attending law school as a non-traditional student. What resources are available to help make my experience as enriching as possible?
Well, and of course, I had an animal start crying the minute I get called on too, just like Matthew. I think he ran away though. So for non-traditional students, and I imagine this is very much the case at all the law schools, I think we are all going to do everything that we need to do to make people feel like they fit in. And so I know there are going to be, certainly at SMU, and I think at everywhere, there are going to be, you know, affinity groups, clubs, and things like that, where you can find people who are similar to you. But I think even more importantly, you know, academic support, and that's provided to all students at SMU, as I imagine is at all the law schools. So academic support in the form of tutoring, mentoring, both by upper class students and at SMU, certainly we have community members, lawyers who are mentors for all of our 1Ls. Faculty advising, you know, all the different sort of pieces that you need support for, I think, as any student does, but certainly as a non-traditional student. And I'm saying that from experience, because I was a non-traditional law student, and I do remember thinking, oh my gosh, they're going to have their backpacks carrying them on both shoulders, and we only carried our backpacks on one shoulder when I went to college. So, you know, that was a big change. But, you know, it's interesting because I think as a non-traditional student that you won't fit in, and then you realize that law schools we're all full of students from all walks of life. Of course, we have a ton of very traditional students straight out of college, all of us do, but then we have students coming, you know, 5 years out, 10 years out, and beyond. I think we all do, particularly those of us who are located in urban settings, I think even more so, because we have, you know, a lot of professionals coming back to school.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jill. Just sort of on a side note, if those of you listening are wondering why every panelist isn't answering every question, again, we would like to get through the questions, and a lot of the answers are going to be similar. While we are all competitors, if you will, we also are colleagues, and would like to advise all potential law students in the best way that we can, so that they ensure a good fit. And so they might not be a good fit at the University of Houston Law Center. They might be a better fit at Texas A&M, et cetera, et cetera. So we work very closely with one another. At this point, we just want to shift a little bit, and it's time for us to get some information from you. So we have another poll. Okay. Well, a couple more seconds before we close that poll. Any last minute voters? All righty, that poll is closing, and we can see the results. All set. Okay, so yeah, we got the majority of the respondents not attending in fall 2020. Okay. I hope that some of the sort of general questions about the law school application process are very helpful for you. All righty, moving on to the next question. I'm going to turn this one over to my colleague and supervisor, Dean Pilar-Mensah. Will your school's admission offices consider LSAT scores earned via LSAT Flex any differently from those earned under normal testing conditions?
That's definitely a great question for those of you that are planning to take one of the LSAT administrations that are coming up. For those of you who may not know, LSAC is now offering a May LSAT Flex exam as well as a June LSAT Flex exam, meaning that applicants will be taking the LSAT from home or wherever they are located, and the exam will be online with an online proctor. And so one of the big differences between the in-person exam and this online exam is that there is one less section the students will be taking online. Typically in person, there are 5 sections, but one of them is experimental. So one does not count toward their score. For the online version, for the sake of timing and the technology that's being used, it will just be 4 sections and all 4 sections will be scored. So in the end, it is still scoring 4 sections. I don't think that any of my colleagues will look at it differently. We feel for those that are having to take the exam online now during a pandemic with a lot of potential distractions within their home. I will look at the scores the same way that I would look at an in-person exam, and knowing what you may have had going on during the time that when you were taking it. But I definitely don't think it's a hindrance. It's not going to hurt your application that you had to take it online. That's definitely something that's out of your control, and we will be accommodating to that.
Thank you, Dean Mensa. Does anyone want to add to that? Okay. Our next question is, let's see, excuse me. Our next question is going to go to South Texas. And actually, I'm going to do a round robin on this one because I think individuals may be interested in all the school. What's your men to women ratio in terms of students? Well, we'll start with South Texas.
Okay, 51% of last year's incoming class were women.
Awesome. Baylor.
Sorry, we are exactly 50% men and women.
Wow, okay. SMU.
We were right at 50-50 last year, and almost every year it falls just about like that.
Okay. University of Texas.
47% for this year.
47%.
Women, sorry.
Okay, awesome. University of Houston.
There's slightly more women, 54%.
Okay. University of North Texas.
We had more women, 54% women.
Okay. Texas Tech.
We were at 51% women.
A&M.
We saw a slight advantage for women this last cycle. I believe we were around 57%.
Okay. St. Mary's.
53% women.
Okay. And Thurgood Marshall.
It was 58% women.
All right. Women rock. Look at all the women on the call anyway. Yay. Okay. All righty. Our next question, excuse me, is in terms of, and I'm going to ask everyone to comment on this one as well, but we will start with my colleague in South Texas. Is it expected for merit-based scholarships to be significantly impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic?
So let me make sure I understand the question. The question is the scholarshiping going to be any different due to COVID?
Yes.
I think the answer would have to be no. At least at South Texas, scholarships are merit-based, based on LSAT and UGPA, and they're done automatically, based on those 2 qualifications. And I don't see how that's going to change. I think the only thing that might be a little bit different is that, we're allowing students to take as late as the June test, which we don't often do. And my only concern about that could be that scholarship dollars and the resources could be gone. But we will do everything that we can, if someone's eligible for a scholarship, to try to make that happen.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alicia. You always anticipate my next question about is it too late to have any money, but that's okay. We'll hold on to that one. Anyone else want to add to whether or not merit-based scholarships might be impacted due to COVID?
Can I chime in just really quickly?
Yes, ma'am.
I think it's probably too soon to tell, but I mean, let's be realistic. Budgets are going to be impacted significantly. And so I think for people who are starting in 2021, the landscape could look different. I mean, I know I've already been asked to cut a significant chunk out of my operating budget. Now, I haven't been asked to cut out of my scholarship budget yet, but I think it's a reality that applicants need to be aware of. And I know at SMU specifically, I did want to mention that this year we were lucky enough. We had a really lovely alum provide me with a big chunk of money that I'm awarding on a in addition to merit-based scholarships, to people with who have already been admitted, to people with significant financial challenges specifically related to COVID-19. I'm able to give them a little bit of extra assistance for the first year. And there probably are some other schools that are doing similarly.
Any other of my colleagues would like to address this issue?
If I can just add to Jill's comments, and not just the reduction of operation budgets, but also the reality is interest rates are going down, and all of us rely on endowment funds, which, you know, if interest rates go down, the return on money goes down as well. So I would anticipate that scholarship budgets would probably, the purse strings are going to be tightened up a little bit for the next year, just because of what's happening in the economy.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. We're going to move to the next question. And this question is going to be for my colleague at UNT. How do you all evaluate multiple LSAT scores in the admissions process?
Well, we take your highest score. Granted, we can see all of your scores, but we just take the highest score when we look at your packet.
Awesome. I'm assuming that that's the case for the other institutions, but if it is not, please unmute yourself and speak to that issue. Okay, next question. What is the attrition rate and why do students generally leave the school? I'm going to turn that over to my colleague at Texas A&M.
One time you caught me nodding off a little bit. Our attrition rate is approximately 5%. And I'm going to tell you the overwhelming majority of that are individuals walking away for personal reasons. And that might be military obligations. I see that very often in a situation where they cannot step away for a leave of absence, for instance, because of a military situation, or most likely personal issues that just tell us now it's not the right time and a short-term leave of absence will not work for me. I think it's incredibly rare that an individual is going to be academically dismissed, particularly in the manner in which our institution, as well as our colleagues, we put so much effort into making that decision regarding who we believe can be successful in our particular programs of study, that it's a rare case that someone's academically being dismissed. And that usually has something to do, again, with outside distractions, I think, that might impact their ability to be fully devoted to their studies. So that's a long-winded way of saying I would calculate ours at about 5%.
Okay, Texas Tech, you want to jump in on that one?
Sure. Ours was 9%. And as Dean Cook mentioned, yes, we do have students who, after the first semester or first year, decide maybe law school is not for them and decide to pursue other things. Some take a leave of absence, some choose to withdraw it completely. We do, of course, have a few students, as most schools do every year, decide to transfer to another law school, be it personal, financial reasons. So yes, ours is 9% for generally the same reasons.
Okay. UNT.
Ours is about 10%, and on the chiming in on the same thing, personal reasons, usually after fundamentals, because we do 2 weeks of fundamentals. Usually after fundamentals, you kind of figure out if this is really what you want to do. We may have a few after classes may start that, figure that, hey, I need to withdraw. This is not it. Law school is not for me, but about 10% attrition rate.
Thank you. South Texas.
About 10% as well. But I mean, I have to say we do lose people for some of the same reasons that my colleagues have listed, but we do have a curve. And so students do fall below the curve and are academically dismissed. So, and it's not necessarily the people that we admitted that might not have the greatest LSAT and GPA. That's the most interesting part to me, and kind of the part that I find fascinating is sometimes it's the people that we admitted that had really good LSATs and GPAs that predicted success. And so I think the thing that students need to remember is, attrition is important to understand, but sometimes it's just about pure hard work. And if you come and you do what we tell you to do, and you listen to your professors and you take advantage of everything that we offer you with respect to helping you academically and be successful, you don't have to be the person that falls below the curve. And you should never assume that because you have a lower LSAT and GPA and you were given a seat in a law school that you can't be the person that's the most successful. So, again, while we do also lose students to the things that my colleagues have mentioned, there are people that grade out after the end of their first year. But I think it's very important to remember that those are not necessarily the people that you think would be having to grade out based on LSAT and GPA. So you don't have to be that guy or gal. As long as you come and you work really hard, you can be successful and not be graded out.
Awesome, thank you. Would anyone else like to add to that? Alrighty, our next question is going to go to my colleague at St. Mary's. How is it important, how important is it for students to have a law-related internship or job before law school?
I was just going to comment on sort of what Dean Kramer was saying. Every year we have a number of people who, after maybe sometimes after orientation, but sometimes after the first week, say, this isn't what I expected. This isn't what I thought it was going to be like. And my first question always to them is, well, did you ask any questions? Did you go observe a law school class? Did you do your homework before deciding that this was the route? And oftentimes the case is that they have not done that. So to me, that would be what you're saying. It's not necessarily that you have an internship or anything like that. So I guess not necessarily to make yourselves attractive to law schools, but more so to make sure that this is the route that you'd like to go, that you'd like to pursue, that you understand what the practice of law is about, that you understand what law school looks like. If you don't like reading, that you have asked those questions and you say, I don't like to read. I will be the first to tell you, if you don't like to read, you are going to hate law school. So, I think those types of experiences are super important in making sure that you're putting the research into making sure that this is what you want to do. Now, with that being said, in terms of applications, it can sometimes help, if I'm looking at someone and I'm saying, okay, well, here's two people that for all, intents and purposes are pretty much the same. And maybe one has worked as a paralegal or an intern or anything like that. Sometimes that can sway me a little bit and saying, okay, well, this is one person who I know won't come that first week and say, I didn't know what I was getting into. So it certainly can help, but is that the make or break it? Like, if you don't have that when you come to law school, will you not get admitted? That is not the case. I came to law school with absolutely no legal experience. You really do start the first year of law school the same as everybody. Everybody takes the same first year curriculum. So it's not that you would be at any sort of disadvantage if you don't have that.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to comment on that internships or legal experience or legal jobs prior to law school being a deciding factor in the application process? All right, next question. I'm going to turn this over to my colleague at the University of Houston Law Center. Do you believe there is a good chance that fall classes will be taught online?
Another great question related to COVID. That is definitely a concern that I've seen from some of the admitted students at this point in the cycle, and I'm sure my colleagues are getting the similar questions. I think that we're all still in a wait and see at this point. It's a little bit too early to decide on what we'll be doing at the end of August, and of course the decision will be made based on the health and safety of our students, what's currently going on in our state and our city at the time. If it seems safe to resume in-person classes. I think probably most schools are looking at 3 options for the fall, meaning either completely going back to in-person classes, which I think would have some different restrictions in the way that classes would run in terms of social distancing. I've heard some ideas about even possibly having sections reduced to smaller class settings where the professor teaches online for one session and then in person for another, and every day you kind of switch so that you are getting some in person, or remaining in one classroom for your classes for that day and the professor switching out so that you can remain in your seat, social distance, and are not, having to move all about the building. So I think there's a lot of ideas going around how we could go full in person and keep everybody safe. I think a second option is some sort of hybrid, where part of the semester, the first part of the semester would be online, and then the second portion of the semester would be in person, just to give more time for the curve to flatten. And then of course, a third option would be full online for the fall. But again, I think we're still kind of in a wait and see at this point, and we'll be communicating as soon as we have a definite answer on that with all of our admitted students.
Thank you, Dean Mingsa. What about Baylor? Any idea for the fall? You guys going online, in person?
So our president sent an email about a week and a half ago now saying that we will be in person in the fall. Once again, what that looks like, we're still figuring out the logistics of that. It won't look like a normal in person in the fall, but we will be on campus in the fall.
Okay. University of Texas.
Very similar. The university is having ongoing conversations through a university leadership, and we'll take the directive of the university. And our anticipation is that we'll have a little bit more clarity around the end of June to see what's happening in the fall. But we do know that the summer courses are going to be, all online.
Okay. SMU? I'll come back to you.
Sorry,
There you go.
my
All right.
phone is acting crazy. I'm sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. So
That's okay.
not a ton to add to what everyone's saying. I think we will definitely be back, but we don't know what it's going to look like. And again, we are like UT. They've told us around the end of June, they should have a little bit more clarity for us, but everybody is brainstorming. We, like all the law schools, there is no substitute for live in-person classes. I mean, let's be real, there's just not. And so I think we're going to be doing everything possible to try to give our students that experience.
All righty. South Texas.
I don't know how much more I can add. I mean, I think the phone calls that I've been getting, people really want assurances that the semester will start, and I can assure you the semester will start. But none of us, I don't think, knows what that looks like, as my colleagues have described. We have to see what our cities and states are doing and where we're at as we get closer. So I think it's just, unfortunately, a wait and see. I think we all want to be back on campus for a variety of reasons. And I think my colleagues make good points. I feel we'll be able to be back on campus, but it might not look the same due to maybe needing to social distance and that sort of thing. I bet all of our schools have had people go to campus and measure what 6 feet looks like and how many people can fit in a classroom. So we're just trying to make our way through this to provide, again, safety for the students and have the best experience possible.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else to add to that question?
Many universities in San Antonio 2 days ago announced, and that's including St. Mary's, announced that we're open for the fall. But again, I think like everybody else, we're just going to wait and see what happens. But I didn't want to, in case anybody read it was a big news article that went out about San Antonio schools, then I didn't want to be deceptive and say but we are part of that.
Okay. Thank you so much. All righty. Well, this seems like a opportune time to take a pause, and we have another poll. We want to hear from you. Okay. All righty. I think we can close the poll, and there are results. Awesome. Okay. We're moving on. We have a few more questions. The next question excuse me, sorry about that. The next question is going to be whether or not, oh, sorry about that, no. All right, the next question is, do you think applying to law school will be more or less competitive due to the current pandemic? And this is for both 2020 as well as for 2021. My colleague from Thurgood, Marshall, you want to take that?
I get the hard questions. No, I believe it's going to depend on the state of the economy and everybody's individual belief of, you know, what people are going to do. We have a lot of people out in the country who are out of work and who are going to be seeking job opportunities and, you know, evaluating their life at that current time. And I'm of the mindset that, you know, that might be a great time for you to go to law school. And some people may not want, or go to school and not necessarily law school in itself. As far as the application being more competitive, it depends on the applicants and the applicant pool that we have. This year, I know a lot of my colleagues have extended their application deadlines or even reopening their application at this current time. So that will make it a little bit more competitive for this academic school year. And I can't really tell you what next year's academic school year we're going to be like with the LSAT flex test and whether we get back to normalcy of the LSAT and all. So it's just so many unknowns at this time. But I would like to think that people will still want to go to school. People are excited about going to law school. And I think it will be just as competitive. I can't say it'll be more competitive. If anybody else wants to chime in and add to that.
Yes, anybody want to add to that comment?
I think you're going to continue to see the same level of competitiveness in regards to the applicant pool, in regards to the strength of the pool. The only one thing that I would add is for the applicant, I think it's going to be incredibly important for you to be as flexible as possible when you're seeking law school opportunities, because along with that level of competitiveness comes also opportunity, to be honest with you. And so for those of you that perhaps are not geographically locked to a particular institution, you have the ability to look at the broad range of law schools that are going to be available to you. I would suggest that you do that. And it starts with what some of our colleagues said. First and foremost, recognizing if law school is for you and if now is the appropriate time to be pursuing law school. Getting started right now, I see a lot of you are not in the cycle right now. So thinking about these things, congratulations on being here, because that's where you start to think about those things. And as you're thinking about those things, allow yourself also to take a look at a broad range of law schools and opportunities available to you, because each institution is going to be in a uniquely different situation, I think, next cycle. And so you might find yourself surprised at the opportunities that are available to you if you open yourself up and you're just not in love with the concept of being a Harvard law student, but truly focusing on the idea of being a law student in a supportive environment.
Thank you so much for that. We're going to move on to the next question. And this question is going to be for my colleague at the University of Texas. And it states, I took the LSAT and I scored a little bit low. I got a 141, plus I have a 3.25 GPA. How is it that I keep getting rejected from law schools, including even the smaller ones? Am I too old for law school at 47? So it's like a double question.
Good question. And I think the response is going to vary from school to school. So anyone with that profile, I would encourage you to have those conversations directly with the admissions folks at the schools that you're interested in. And I'll answer the question in two parts, the first of which is, the LSAT and the GPA. And I think in an earlier question where my colleagues had responded, I think it was Dean Cook who said that the median LSAT is the starting point and the benchmark for many institutions, but you should not marry yourself in thinking that your ability to be admitted into the institution is dictated by what we are required to report out to the ABA. And that's all that we are doing, is we're reporting out our statistical information for consumer purposes. And the breadth of LSAT scores and GPAs is a full range. And so while the 25th percentile indicates a particular number, again, a quartile, below that, and a quartile above that are being admitted. So I think the basic question that you have to ask yourself, and what we're really interested in, is, are you prepared to handle the academic rigors of law school, right? And as someone had mentioned earlier, it's a sliding scale, right? If you don't have the LSAT, then what else, if you don't have the LSAT score that's at the median, what else are you demonstrating to the admissions committee that you actually can handle the rigors of law school? And that might very well be a higher GPA, that might very well be strong letters of recommendations, that might very well be, an extensive portfolio of professional experiences or engagement in the community that the committee is willing to say, look, this individual doesn't have the traditional benchmarks of academic performance, but here's why we should still take a chance on them, right? So I can assure you that we've admitted students way below our 25th percentile that if we were to go back to them and say, did you think that you would be admitted just based off of the median LSAT and GPA? And they probably would have said, no, I never had a chance, right? But the best way to deny yourself an opportunity is by not applying, because here in this panel are admissions professionals who take our jobs quite seriously. And each institution is looking for a unique set of students, and it varies from school to school. And so you should not just think that because you don't have the LSAT or the GPA that you don't have that possibility. Now, that's not to say that it's not going to be a challenge, right? And it's a matter of figuring out how can you mitigate, your weak parts of your application with the strong parts of your application. And that's going to vary from applicant to applicant. But again, this is an invitation for you to have that very hard conversation with admissions professionals to say, look, here's my profile. What can I do to improve my chances at your school? So that's the first part. The second part is the age question. And again, I think it was Dean Mensa who said this, that, at our schools, we have a full range of students who are coming into law school straight out of undergrad. And then we have another subset of students who are going to law school after a number of years of experience. Everyone is going to law school for different reasons. And there are many individuals who are pursuing law school at a different stage of their career. And so, the age factor is really not really a big factor in my view, just because, again, people are going to law school for a number of reasons. And I think, I welcome that. I welcome people with professional experience, with lived experience, because when we talk about how is the applicant going to add to the diversity of our law schools, that is one way. And how they're going to view and interpret cases is going to be a lot different, right? Someone who was a homemaker and started their academic career later in life is going to view domestic issues and family legal issues in a very different way than someone who just graduated from undergrad, right? So we welcome students with lived experiences and both personal and professional. So that's how I would answer, the age question.
Thank you so much. And I think all of our colleagues would definitely agree with your answer and your response and how it's been, how it was framed, both relative to the LSAT and the age question. So thank you so much for that. The next question I have, I'm going to turn that over to my colleague at Texas Tech and then ask others to jump in if needed. And the question is the LSAT going to be waived due to the pandemic?
At Texas Tech, unfortunately, the LSAT is not going to be waived. We have received a number of questions. I know that there are some schools nationwide that have been able to be a little bit creative with other programs that they have, including like a master's of jurisprudence, where the students will be able to enroll in those programs without the LSAT, and depending on their performance, eventually jump into the actual JD program. But as far as at Texas Tech, we won't be able to waive the LSAT.
Okay. To my other colleagues, are any of your institutions waiving the LSAT? Shakes of head, looks like no. Dean Mensah.
I just wanted to mention one thing. The only exception to the LSAT would be a new program that we're offering in fall 2021. It would just be applicable to our U of H undergraduate students, so I won't get too into the details of it, but there is a bit of a waiver if you meet certain qualifications and you're also a graduate or in school at the University of Houston. If anyone wants to talk about that offline, I'm happy to do that.
Okay, thank you. My next question is going to go to my colleague at UNT, and if others have a different response, please feel free to jump in. And that is, will any of the Texas law schools be seeking approval to conduct programs online in the near future?
We haven't had any talks about seeking approval to teach it online because our goal and plan is to go back to campus this fall. So, no.
Anybody else? And I don't think, before you respond, colleagues, I don't think this is just in the context of COVID-19, just any talks of your institution just to offer the Juris Doctorate as an online program. Anybody?
At St. Mary's, we're in the process of certifying majority of our professors to be able to teach online because we already have an online master's program. And the idea would be that if at some point the ABA does allow for more online credits, then we'd have the professors certified to be able to do that. But I don't know at what point that would take place.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay. Next question. I'm going to put this to Dean Mensah. If I'm unable to afford the fee for CAS, does your institution offer fee waivers?
That's a good question. I'll first mention that there is a fee waiver that's available through the Law School Admission Council. So that's kind of the first avenue I would say to look into because the waiver from the Law School Admission Council will cover CAS fees and some other fees for more than one school. So you might want to look into that as a need-based waiver. In terms of schools, I would contact the schools individually and see if they offer any sort of waivers on the CAS report or the CAS fee. I think it's going to depend on the school. We do offer some waivers for our CAS reports. We have a short form that we ask you to complete. And again, we're looking to try to help those that are in need. So it is going to ask you some brief, but financial questions.
Okay. Anyone else want to add to that? CAS fee waiver, does your institution offer? How one might go about obtaining that?
We do offer them on a first come, first served basis. We did up to 100 this year. Only about 40 people took us up on them. But another good reason for us, and I think for a lot of schools, to apply early in the cycle. There are a lot of benefits to applying early.
Okay, thank you so much.
SMU is the same as Baylor. We do have some fee waivers, first come, first serve, and we do, like like U of H, we do have a form that you have to fill out. I mean, and I think applicants need to understand, maybe they don't, I think they should, that when we quote unquote waive your CAS fee, we're not waiving it, we're paying it for you. So there's a difference. It's not like I have these magical waivers that I can waive because it's actually the law school paying your CAS fee for you when we do a waiver.
All righty. Anyone else want to comment?
I would just say that we're very similar. We're very liberal with our application fee waivers, but this year we have done a number of CAS fee waivers for individual students. But I would just suggest that candidates ask the individual schools what is their policy on application fee waivers and CAS fee waivers, because we have given out a number of those this academic school year.
Great. All righty. The next question I have relates to demographics of your individual institutions. Can you share information regarding the diversity at your institution for entering law students, specifically students of color? I will start with my colleague at St. Mary's.
Our diversity numbers are roughly at about 60%. And it's broken down a little bit more specifically on our website, but generally we're at about 57 to 62% every year.
Okay. And as of students of color? That's the question.
Correct. Yes.
All righty. Thank you. What about Baylor?
We are at about 30% now.
Okay. Texas Tech?
We are about 38% students of color.
Okay. Texas A&M?
31%.
Okay. South Texas?
Sorry, my bad. Lord, I've forgotten. I've been away from my little stats too long. I believe it was just over 50%.
Okay. SMU?
We were just under 30% for last year. I'm looking at, if my class stays the same for 2020, to be just over 30% right now, but it is a continuing priority to have a more diverse class every year, as I'm sure it is for all my colleagues.
Absolutely. All right. University of Texas?
32% for this past class.
Thank you. University of Houston?
For this last class, 2019, I believe it was 36%.
Okay. UNT?
54% for this past year.
And Thurgood Marshall?
Thurgood Marshall being a HBCU, we have about 70–80% of minority students at Thurgood Marshall. But although we are typically an HBCU, we are a very diverse law school of Hispanic students, Asian American, Pacific Islander. So we are a very diverse law school.
Okay, great. I'm looking at the time. Our time is almost winding down. I have 11:21. We're going to try, I have some more questions, but we're going to try something. We have covered a myriad of topics for those of you in the cycle now, those of you in the future cycle. Hopefully my pre-law advisors may have something to take back as well. But what I'm going to do is attempt to have my colleague, Dean Mensa, present for you an email address. If for some reason you have a question, an area that we have not addressed, we are going to allow you to send an email to that particular email address, and I will attempt to field some of those questions. So again, the email address is listed there, but I'm going to continue on. She'll hold that for a second, hopefully, but I will continue on with a few other questions that we have. All right, the next question that I'm going to turn over to my colleague at St. Mary's is, if I have applied to law school and I did not get accepted, do I need to write a new personal statement and also get new letters of recommendation if I plan to apply?
That's a really good question, and I think it depends on your application to begin with. As I know Dean Lee said earlier, when you are denied, it's really important to have a conversation with the schools that you'd like to attend in a future year. So that would be my first step that I would do. I would say I would reach out, maybe set up an appointment or a meeting with someone at the admissions office and ask those questions, because it can sort of depend. If anything has changed within the year between that you applied the first time and you apply again, then I think it would be very important to update a personal statement. I have seen, reapplicants with 4- and 5-year-old letters of recommendation. And that's okay, but I think at that point, if you're reapplying, you could definitely reach out either to the same people or to different people and ask for updated letters of recommendation. I always like to see personally that someone has taken an extra step to improve an application. So if I read the personal statement and I remember, oh my gosh, from last year, this was the person that had X, Y, and Z spelling errors or mistakes in that personal statement, I'm already of the mindset that reapplicant didn't take the time to say, let me go over my application and see where I can improve. So I think it's important to sort of analyze the application and see where there can be some changes or improvement. If you didn't have somebody read your personal statements prior, which I think happens quite often, because a lot of times personal statements do come to us with errors, misspellings, things like that. made up words, unfortunately, this year I had a lot of people with made up words, then it really is important to say, you know what, I am very serious about this process, and I want the admissions committee to know that I'm taking it seriously, and I'm going to put forth a different application. Now, if nothing has changed and you're comfortable with the statements and the recommendations, and perhaps you've had something like an increased LSAT score, then perhaps you can submit the same materials. But I would be real careful in just making sure and taking any sort of constructive criticism if offered to you, in making sure that you are submitting the best application you can as a reapplicant.
Okay. Does anybody want to add to that? Okay. I actually want to add something to that, and I've also started to get some questions via email that I do want to share if my colleagues don't mind hanging on for a little bit. I know it is 11:25, but at the University of Houston Law Center, we have a reapplicant process, if you will. We engage in counseling via the telephone, usually in August, in an effort to advise you on application, as well as providing some information on how to make your future application a little stronger. Alrighty, the questions are coming in. Okay, so first question, any advice for single mothers planning to attend law school? I'm gonna give that one to my colleague from South Texas.
That's a good question. There are, lots of people in a lot of different situations, and everyone needs the support to go to law school. It's a very rigorous and arduous process to apply, and of course, once you get there, it continues on. And so, I would encourage you to make sure that you have some sort of support system. The number of hours that you're going to have to dedicate to studying and preparing and those sorts of things. Single moms do this, single dads do this. It can be done, but you will need some support systems in place so that you will be able to devote the time that's going to be needed to dedicate to your studies. And in some cases, extracurriculars that you may want to take advantage of, clerkships, internships, things of that nature, so that you can build your portfolio and your experiences and better prepare yourself to find a job after you're done. But I do think it takes a lot of family or friends or whomever support to be able to carry that out.
Can I add something really quick? I think sometimes students are afraid to ask for resources. And so I know I've hosted play dates for children so that moms can have some study time. But I wouldn't have known that unless those students had come to me and said, look, I'm in a bind where I don't have anybody to watch my kids while I'm at studying. So I think it's important to just say, I know that there are people who are willing to help me if I don't have family or friends support.
I wanted to add something real quick too. Depending on the age of your child, you might also want to look into the resources available if the law school is tied to a major university. There may be childcare available on campus. I know University of Houston, we do have a childcare, so and priority is given to students who have children. So there may be some availability, again, depending on the age of your child, if daycare is something you still need.
Okay. Alrighty, here's another question via email. It's a pretty long one, so listen up, here we go. It's stated, so on average, each applicant submits a 1.5 to 2 page personal statement, a 1 to 2 page resume, a 1-page diversity statement, 1 addendum statement, and 2 letters of recommendation, which totals around 6 to 8 pages for each application. There are so many applicants in the cycle. Do you get to read all of the applications, and how do you read them? I'm going to give that to my colleague at the University of Texas to start us off.
That's what we're going to end on. No, that's a great question. And so the way that we structure at the University of Texas is that we have several faculty readers as well as admission staff that do the pre-reads. And essentially it goes through various stages in the application process. And so everyone reads the application, and as it makes its way through the process, then it all gets funneled through me. So every single application, whether it's an admit, wait list, or a denial, all goes through me that I have to, make a final decision on. So our faculty committee consists of 6 faculty members, and then the admission staff that read are 3, sometimes 5 individuals. And so yes, we do read the application thoroughly, which is oftentimes why it takes very long for us to read an application. Sometimes students are like, well, I applied, 4 weeks ago, and I still haven't heard back, and it's because it takes a long time to get through applications. And many schools, are waiting to see what's happening in the application cycle, so they may not want to make a decision, before they have to. And it's not because they're trying to, make your life miserable by making you wait. It's really because they want to make an informed decision. And so my view is that if you haven't heard anything, that's probably a good thing, right? But if you're ever curious, it never hurts to, check in with the law school to see what your status is. I believe all of us have some form of an applicant status online checker or something of the sort where you can, see the status of your application in real time. But that's how our application review process is, and it takes some time.
Sorry about that. Dean Mensa, do you want to add to that? I know our process is a little different at the University of Houston Law Center.
Right, so we review applications as a committee. We have both professional admissions staff that will review applications as well as faculty that are looking at them. And so we do a solely online review, which is great. Several years ago, we still had paper files, and so you had to literally, you had to have the paper file and then pass it on to the next person, pass it on to the next person. And so it would make the process take a little bit longer. But now we can assign these files online, and everyone can be kind of reading them simultaneously and on applications. And so that allows us to get through the process a little bit quicker, but it is still quite a bit when we're talking about, potentially thousands of applications and each person submitting multiple documents. And so, but every single application is read, and every document is read that you submit. And so we do take that full, comprehensive file review very seriously. We're not just looking at GPA and LSAT, so we have to read through all the documentation to really get an idea of who you are and kind of what you would bring to the table if you became part of the community here at the Law Center.
Okay. Got another question. I'm going to give this to my colleague at Texas A&M. When should we start applying for law school to be accepted?
We typically release our application at A&M around September 1, or as close to that as possible for the following fall. So our cycle begins September 1, and we will carry that through probably the end of May. Now, the possibility of extension, as we've seen during this application cycle, is always going to be there. But I don't think I have anything else to add to that. That was a pretty straightforward question, so thank you for that one.
Okay. And I think it's probably similar to for most of our schools, if not all of our schools. If not, if one of my colleagues want to jump in and show how it might be different. Okay. Next.
Angela, if I may, I'll
Yes,
come back and I'll add a little bit more to that.
Okay.
What I will tell prospective students is that you want to pay attention to the individual institutions that you're applying to. I know our colleagues have talked about reading instructions and things of that nature. Incredibly important, because a lot of our institutions have different timelines and special admission programs that may be of interest to you. So when applying to law schools, yes, we're releasing that application in September, but there might be a situation where there's an early admission program, for instance, which might require a specific deadline. Some of us might have an LSAT waiver type program, which we branded Aggie Direct, which might require a separate admission deadline. So pay attention to those overall deadlines, not just when the application is released. And that also, with our colleague at University of Texas, that sometimes dictates who gets priority and how applications are being reviewed, because we have special deadlines associated with different admission type programs.
Okay, thank you so much.
Can I add something?
Yes.
To reiterate what I said earlier, it is best to apply early. So, earlier in the cycle, but not at the expense of putting together your best application. So if you, because of your life, can't take the LSAT until the fall, when you're planning to apply, it's better to wait a little bit and submit the best application that you can completely. Don't rush just so you can get it in a little bit earlier.
Okay. Anyone else? Alrighty. I do want to thank my colleagues for hanging on. We are technically past our time. I do have some more questions that have come in via email, and I would ask my colleagues to please indulge me to get these questions answered. Let's see. The next one is, do you think there will be more waitlist movement due to COVID-19? I'm going to give that to my colleague at UNT.
It just depends. I mean, because, we do rolling admissions until we get a class. So we are going to, if we, from the applicants that we have in the pool that we have now, we are going to make some offers, and then we will go back and review our wait list. We'll start reviewing wait lists maybe around June, end of June. And so the turnaround is going to be pretty tight because, class is going to start in August. So you have a little short window to get everything into us. So it just depends on if we have a class. The only thing is about when you apply late in the cycle like this, you do put yourself at risk of possibly going on the wait list. And then if we have, a class already, then it could be that you may not come off the wait list and you have to reapply next year. So that's the thing you have to think about. I know we were talking about when should you apply? And I'm just gonna add this little point, applying early is always good. I know it's kind of cliche, the early bird catches the worm, but they do, because, applying late in the cycle put you at risk of going on the wait list.
Okay, thank you so much, Sheena. Appreciate that. All righty. Our next question is, well, you know what? We're gonna let everybody take this one. So we'll start with my colleague from Thurgood. How much is your institution to out-of-state students, more specifically, Louisiana students? Thurgood, Marshall?
You say how much is
How much is your institution? So what's the cost of out-of-state?
Out-of-state tuition? Out-of-state tuition is going to be $27,618. Our in-state tuition, just to give you out-of-state and in-state, is going to be $20,418 for the academic school year, and that's just tuition and fees. So I encourage everyone to do your due diligence and research when we talk about, the cost of education, of your law school education at each individual institution. So you have tuition and fees, and then you have your total cost of attendance, and then you have, that's a whole financial aid issue thing we're going to, of breaking down finances, but then you have your scholarship. So you have to break all that down to make sure you get the accurate cost of attendance. Even though you might be getting X number of dollars from said school A or B, their cost of attendance may be way more than school C over here. So I just encourage a lot of students, and even if you don't know, to call the school individually, and maybe they can help you break down the cost of attendance to get you to what your true cost of what you're going to pay for your law school education is. That was a long-winded answer, sorry.
No, thanks, Ken. I actually want to speak to that in terms of, in the interest of time, the cost of all of our institutions could probably be found on our website, but I do like the fact that the way Ken kind of put it is just not, one, it's comprised of many things. So in the interest of time, and because I do have several other questions in email that I would like to get to, and I don't want to hold my colleagues that much longer, I'm going to go to the next question. And that question is, it's specifically, let's see, how do the schools support those with mental health challenges that might need academic accommodations? Who wants to take that?
I'll jump in for a do have students that need accommodations for their exams, and so there is a process that they'll go through with a department that we have on campus for students. It's students with, I think, abilities is what it's called. And so there's a process you would go through with them, and then exams, it will look different just depending on what your accommodations are, but typically at least additional time is given for exams. Maybe also allowing exams to occur in a private room so that you're not having the distractions of everyone else. And those accommodations are going on now, even though students are taking their exams online, they are still given additional time and things of that nature to assist them. So I think we probably all have a process for that and allow it. So you just would want to talk to the individual schools and see what the process is for that.
Okay.
And I'm gonna add to that too, Pilar. Like, yeah, we do have accommodations, but we also have a school counselor that we hired about 2 years ago. And so students go into her office and, you know, just talk if they need to just talk or vent or what have you. And so with everything going on with COVID-19, she's still available. She has meetings with our current students. So that's something that I think that, you know, a lot of schools may be adding. But like I said, we added her about 2 years ago.
Yes, we also work with the PhD students, counseling students on the Texas Tech main campus, and they come over and provide services to our students as needed.
Okay. Anybody else? Alrighty, let's see. Just so everybody knows, we have actually 5 more questions. And then I'm unable to take any more questions, but I do appreciate all the questions that's been submitted. But actually, before I start with the last 5 questions, we have a question for you guys. And so our next poll, Dean Mensa. Okay. Oops, maybe a couple more seconds, and then we'll close that poll. Okay, I think we can probably close that poll now, and there are the results for us there. Okay. I do want to take the last 5 questions, and a couple of them are very institution specific. I do want to give my colleagues the opportunity to answer those institution specific questions, with the exception of my dean, who will remain on the line after we conclude the call if there are questions specifically for the University of Houston Law Center. So that being said, this question goes to UT. Is it possible to showcase talent and dedication for law school through work experience rather than through numbers from undergraduate and LSAT score? Part 1, how likely will it be for the experience to significantly on the admissions process?
Yes, absolutely. And I think, you know, in a prior response, I mentioned how students are able to sort of mitigate, you know, the LSAT score and the GPA. And so professional experience is one of those ways that, you know, you can really distinguish yourself from the rest of the applicant pool. So it doesn't necessarily mitigate completely the academic concerns, but it certainly does help. Particularly, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of what I was thinking, sorry, not just the employability of the candidate down the road. You know, time and time again, you know, when we talk to law firms and they're telling us what kind of candidates are successful, and they really are looking for students with professional work experience as well. People who have the ability to have emotional intelligence and, you know, to work with clients. I mean, when you think about it, you are handling cases that have people's lives at stake or multi-million-dollar impact. And so a lot of law firms are looking for individuals who have that kind of experience. One thing to note, I don't know if we've had the opportunity to mention this before, is the standard, the ABA standard 509 reports that is very important for students to just have in their back pocket. And so it's one of the things that every single law school is required to report out at the end of, I think it's December or January. And so it's just valuable information for students to kind of get a sense of, the school's, background and, statistics and all that stuff. And so I just want to make sure that we mention that.
Okay, thank you so much. Next question is for SMU. Good morning. For SMU Denman School of Law, when will waitlisted candidates receive a final application decision?
So for us, we generally don't release our wait list until school starts. There have been many years where I have admitted people from the wait list actually at orientation. And so it's all summer long. Sorry.
Okay. I agree that that might be the case for most of us, actually. Okay, next, excuse me. Who is a good resource to help with reviewing personal statements or other application materials? Parents, lawyers, current law students, pre-law advisors, Reddit? How do we know if we're getting good advice? Texas Tech, can you take that one?
Sure, you saw my reaction to Reddit.
Right?
The answer is it depends, and kind of all of the above. I would first start with your pre-law advisors. They have read so many personal statements for so many people trying to apply to schools across the country, and they're a great source of information. Definitely read it to different people. Read it to your parents, read it to your friends. Of course, they're going to generally skew on the nicer side of critiques, but ask them if it sounds like your voice, and check their eyes, see if they're doling out while you're reading. If it's boring to them, it may be boring to us. So, you want to make sure that it sounds like you and that it's authentically your story. As far as who else to read, some law school advisor or some law school admissions folks, depending on how many files they're reviewing and how much they have on their plate, are able to kind of look at and review, though not give too many critiques on the actual content itself, are able to kind of help you put together an outline for your personal statement, or at least talk it through with you. So yes, I would start with pre-law advisors and then the folks around you, just making sure that it is a cohesive personal statement that you're about to submit.
Okay. All right, next question. This is going to be for SMU. If a student already, actually, I'm going to want all my colleagues to just jump in on this one, but we'll start with SMU and be very brief. If a student already has a below average LSAT score on file with LSAT, will a more recent or higher GRE score be considered instead, or does the LSAT score take precedence? Jill?
The answer is no. If you have, for those schools who take the GRE, if you have an LSAT score, we must use the LSAT score for admissions purposes. So don't jump and try to take the GRE because it will not help.
Okay. Any of my colleagues does any of you guys take the GRE?
No.
All right.
No.
We do at Texas A&M.
Okay, so University of Texas, Texas A&M will accept the GRE for admissions purposes. Okay. All righty. Next question. Here we go. Sorry. This is about working and going to law school. I have a question about the manageability of working during law school. I don't know anyone personally who has gone to law school, and I don't know if I can afford to go to law school without a job. I've worked all the way through undergrad, and sometimes my grades have suffered. How possible is it to work part-time and go to law school concurrently? St. Mary's, let's take that one.
It's only possible to work full-time for us if you are going to school part-time. So that's the purpose we have the part-time program, which is an evening program. And that is for the individuals like the person asking the question who is planning to work while they go to law school. Other than that, our full-time students are limited to working no more than 20 hours, and we don't recommend that they work at all their first year. Second and third year, if they are able to schedule in that, and a lot of students do, they're able to create a schedule which allows them to work 20 hours as full-time students, then that is a possibility, but at least first year we would not recommend it. But again, that would be 20 hours. If you're looking at full-time, then you'd have to go to our part-time program.
Okay. Thank you, Catherine. And I think that's the case for most of our law schools, that working during your first year of law school, particularly full-time, is not an ideal situation. I think the adjustment to law school from undergrad, it's very different. We're teaching you how to think differently. And so, you know, your first year law grades, I tell everyone, it serves the foundation for the rest of law school and potential job placement in later years. And so it is not advisable to work during your first year. 2 more questions. I have my application for the fall 2020 JD program complete and in the shopping cart on LSAC with all necessary attachments. The only thing missing is an LSAT score, which I'm scheduled to take in June. Does it make sense to go ahead and submit it? If so, how does the LSAT score get communicated to you once available? Texas A&M, you want to take that one?
I think it absolutely does make sense to submit that application and go ahead and designate your law schools that you want to receive that. Everything is there, it's all set, it's ready to go. The only thing missing is that LSAT score. And as soon as that LSAT score becomes available, that will complete your CAS report and it will allow the law schools to access things. So there's really no disadvantage if you're applying for fall 2020 to go ahead and get that out of the way. That way, you know, you've done everything that you need to do. And the only thing delaying that the transmission of your application will be that LSAT score.
Awesome. All righty, last question, panelists, and I so appreciate you indulging me and going over the time. And this question, we're going to give this to my colleague from Baylor. And if anybody wants to jump in on this last one, that would be okay as well. How do I discover what type of law is best for me? And based off of that, how do I figure out what law school is best for me? I know that's
a big question. As far as, and please, co-panelists, please weigh in, but as far as what type of law you want to do, you certainly don't have to decide before you go to law school. You know, a lot of the first year and even your first summer internships will be about discovering that, and even really into your second and third year. You can, before you go to law school though, talk to attorneys. Attorneys love to talk about themselves. So, you know, take them out to coffee or ask if you can shadow them, and, you know, shadow a bunch of different types of attorneys. Big firm, small firm, big town, small town. If there's something you think you're interested in, talk to an attorney that's in that area and see what her day-to-day life looks like. So that's a good way to kind of start thinking about things. But as I said, a lot of that you will get in law school. As far as what law school to choose, there are a lot of different things. A lot of different criteria that can matter to you. So I always tell people, you know, kind of as you're starting the process, get a spreadsheet and list every possible criteria you could think of that might be important to you, whether or not that is cost or location or ranking or type of law. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different things that can matter to you. I would say include on there, you know, the feel on the campus and the community. And then, you know, start doing your research, get online, go visit the campuses once we're back open. But I know even though we're not open, we've all put together a lot of virtual opportunities to give you a chance to kind of explore our culture and our community. So take advantage of those. You know, we all have very robust websites. You can talk to alumni of a school. You can talk to other lawyers to see how they view alumni from that school. There's so many resources out there that are going to tell you about a particular school. So do your research and then refer back to that list of criteria and start kind of filling out your list. That's the best I can tell you, and colleagues, please feel free to weigh in.
Yeah, that was very good. Very good. Anybody else? Okay.
I'm gonna add one thing, Angela. And
okay.
Once everything goes back, you know, hopefully back to normal, go visit a court. Just go sit in on a court case. You know, that's a public place. Go sit in on the courts, and like Jenny said, please go and visit our schools. You know, I know it's hard now, but look at our videos that we have up. You know, you get a feel for what we're like.
Awesome. Well, I want to begin first by thanking Dean Mensa for the idea of putting this panel on. I definitely like to thank my colleagues from all over the state for being available on a Saturday, taking these questions, being very honest and forthright with all of our students here, and going over the time. And I know they appreciate that as well. And so before ending, what we're going to do is we have one last question for folks. And then my colleagues, when this is done, you guys can sign off if you want. If there are students that have specific questions for the University of Houston Law Center, I have about 4 in the queue. I will have Dean Mensa answer those particular questions, and then we will conclude. Just so you guys don't think I am just a faceless person, I do exist. It's hard for me to read emails, read the questions, and so that's why I kind of, you know, disable my video. But again, I thank everybody for being on this call, my colleagues, the students, and I hope this was helpful. And Dean Mensa, last poll, please.
Before I throw up the poll, I wanted to mention too, I'll be sending a follow-up email after the event is over, just thanking everyone for attending. And that communication will include the contact information of all of the schools that are represented today. So if you didn't get your questions answered, or you did have a specific question for a school, I will provide all of that contact information so you can directly contact that school. Okay, here's the last poll.
Thank you.
Panelists, can we want to take a picture before everybody logs off?
I
Danielle?
actually took a couple already, Catherine. I got you. You didn't know it.
But is it good? She may want you to redo it.
I took a couple. I took a couple, so I think.
Get a good side.
Okay.
Look.
So if the results of this poll are bad, do I want to share it?
It's going to be fabulous. I just feel it.
Right.
102 people have held on.
I will appreciate that. All righty, I think we can close this particular poll. Thank you so much for participating. Feel free to sign up at this point, or feel free to stay on and enjoy Saturday. Be safe, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, Pilar.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
Bye.
Pilar. Bye, everybody. Thank you, guys.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you, too. Be safe. All righty, Dean Mensa, I'm going to give it a little bit to see how many you have with us.
And I saw a couple of hands go up, but I know we weren't.
Right. I can't take the hand. So what you can do, if you're still on the line.
Here, I'll hold it up again. If you have a
You
question you still want to answer, please email it. to
You can
this
send an email.
address. It's lawadmissions@uh.edu. And we'll get to that question.
All righty, we have 54 participants, and while we're waiting to see if anyone wants to send an additional question, I'm going to go with the 4 questions that I already have for Dean Mensa. All righty, one came in specifically on the email, and that is, give me 1 second. Okay. I am a recent graduate from the University of Houston with a bachelor's degree. I am participating on the Zoom Law School meeting today, and Dean Mensa mentioned that there is a potential LSAT waiver for UH grads who plan on attending UHLC. Can I please get more information about this?
Absolutely. And I'll also mention we'll be doing a separate online session specifically to talk about this program in great detail and answer questions. But basically, if you are a U of H undergraduate student, on our main central campus, there is a potential waiver of the LSAT if you're applying to law school. This will begin with fall 2021. So we're not accepting anyone this way for this fall, but starting next fall, if you have a cumulative GPA of 3.6 or higher through 6 semesters of study, and you also scored in the 85th percentile on your ACT or SAT when you were applying to undergrad. It needs to be, the exam you took then, not taking it now, but when you took the exam prior to college, you are eligible to apply to the law center without an LSAT score. And so if you meet these qualifications, I would definitely recommend that you contact me. We have a conversation. I've spoken to a couple of UH undergrads already, and they've provided me, a copy of their SAT score just so we can ensure you are in the 85th percentile. And, just make sure everything is set because you won't be taking the LSAT exam. And so to qualify under this program, you would not take the LSAT exam, because if you did take the LSAT, then we would have to take it into consideration. And so, to speak very candidly, if you're not taking the LSAT, then we are the only institution that you can apply to without this LSAT score. And so that's why I recommend having these conversations with me early, so you know your what position you're in. And also, I would recommend to apply early to the program next year if you're not planning to take the LSAT, just so that you can have the plan B, that if things did not work out with U of H, you would still have the opportunity to take the LSAT and potentially apply to other schools. But again, in order to qualify under this, you cannot take the LSAT. Whether you don't take it, you apply, you get in, you can't take it later, because then we would again have to include that in our review process and also report that information as well. So again, U of H undergrads only, 3.6 or above for the GPA, and in the 85th percentile for the SAT or ACT.
Great. Next question, Dean Mensa. I'm going to be graduating a year early, unexpectedly. Is there anything specific that law schools would like to see done in a gap year, or should I look deeper into finding spring start programs? I've yet to take the LSAT, and I'm planning to take it this fall.
Right. So with the gap year, we see many students do that. I would say more students are not coming straight from undergrad. They may be working for a few years, even more than just 1 year, and so that's not atypical for us to see. I would say use that time. We do want to see you're doing something during that time, but if that's, you traveling to another country or having some experience, it doesn't have to necessarily be work related. But if we think back to what one of the panelists said, I believe from St. Mary's, it is a good opportunity for you to possibly have a legal internship or do something law related, just to ensure that this is really the path that you're interested in, and maybe even possibly you'll figure out what type of law you think you might want to do. So you could utilize this time to just help kind of secure your decision in going to law school, but we wouldn't necessarily, we wouldn't look negatively if you didn't do anything law related during that time. Definitely, like you said, studying for the LSAT, getting the best score that you possibly can will help you for admission, will help you for scholarship opportunities. I would say enjoy the year off because when you do start law school in the fall, it's very challenging and intense. So it is a good time to, if you need to hit the reset button after undergrad, definitely do that.
Awesome. All right, next question, Dean Mensa. Are any staff at the University of Houston Law Center outside of the admissions department available to review my personal statement? I'm a non-traditional student and a pre-law undergraduate advisor is not accessible.
What was the last part? And the pre-law advisor?
Is not accessible. They don't have access to one.
Okay. We do have a pipeline program at the University of Houston that is for students that are still in school and they would like to learn more about law school over the summer. It's an 8-week program. And so there are some staff that are available through the pipeline program that I think could possibly review your personal statement and give you some tips. Outside pre-law advisors though, if there's someone maybe from your career office, from your undergraduate institution that you could reach out to, someone who is reviewing your letters of recommendation. If you have any professors that you can go to from the past, they would be a good person to give you some critique, probably more on the writing in terms of grammar, the writing style. There's a lot of resources outside just a designated pre-law advisor. I think you could get assistance again from these other areas. And another, just kind of talking about the personal statement, I think it's a good idea to give the personal statement to someone who really knows you well as someone who doesn't know you well. So maybe that would be a professor. For someone that knows you well, they'll be able to read it, and if you've forgotten something that they think could be impactful within your statement, they can remind you of that. But then also having someone review it that doesn't know you well, if something doesn't make sense or they have questions, that would be a person who might be able to see that for you. Because like a professor or someone who doesn't know you extremely well, the admissions staff that reads your personal statement and the admissions faculty that read your statement, we're obviously not going to know you well. So that will help clear any potential confusion.
Okay, we just have a few more questions and then we're actually going to close it down. But this question is, I took dual credit high school and this factors into my college GPA. This dual credit actually lowers my GPA, and I was wondering if law schools will consider this or not, and if there's an ability I can demonstrate that my academic drive has changed since then.
Right, so as you said, any courses that you took in furtherance of your four-year bachelor's degree is going to be part of your cumulative GPA. The Law School Admission Council puts together that cumulative GPA, whether it's AP classes, college, community college, and then your four-year institution. So we will receive a report from them that will include that cumulative GPA, but it'll also show us your graduating GPA. So just the GPA from the institution you're actually graduating from. And sometimes those can vary significantly because, like you said, someone improved their grades over time. And so by the time they got to their four-year institution, they did much better than maybe they did at the high school AP level or community college level. So we'll definitely see that distinction within the two GPAs. In the report, we also see your grades for each year. So we'll see the semesters and the years and the cumulative GPAs for each of those. So that gives us an idea of kind of any upward trends in your trajectory. The other thing you can do is a separate addendum. And that's for anything really additional that you'd like the admissions committee to know that doesn't necessarily fit within a personal statement. So in an addendum, you could explain that and highlight that, how your grades improved over time, and how you did much better once you got to your four-year institution or once you figured out what major you wanted to study and things like that. So an addendum is a great place, like I said, to explain anything additional, or even if, let's say you had a pretty steady performance, but you had one semester where you did poorly due to some personal reason in your life, you can always share that in an addendum as well. It gives us more context rather than trying to guess why, you know, an applicant's GPA trends look a certain way. You can actually let us know in an addendum.
Alrighty, I'm going to just take the next question to give Dean Mensah a little bit of a break. The question relates to letters of recommendation and who's the best person to get one from, and should it come from a faculty member. If you are someone who is graduating from or have graduated recently, if I were rank ordering letters of recommendation, I would definitely say that a professor is a good place to start. The reason for that is that professor should be able to speak to your academic ability. I like to tell students that if you've taken a professor more than once, that would be great. So maybe you've taken 2 or 3 classes with that professor. It shows the longevity of the relationship, and he or she would be able to speak to your, you know, your academic prowess, if you will. Other recommendation letters can come from other people that know you as well. Maybe you have participated in an organization on campus, or maybe a volunteer organization outside of campus. It could come from a religious leader. If you're working, perhaps an employer. What I also like to share with students when I'm out recruiting is that letters of recommendation do not, let me repeat, do not have to come from another lawyer or a judge. Or a senator or a congressperson or someone like that. It really needs to come from someone that knows you. We are able to read in a matter of what, a second, Dean Mensah, that person doesn't know you. In fact, they may know your dad and play golf with your dad. And so you really want a letter from someone who knows you, the student. So that's how I respond to that. I got a couple more questions. Let me get those questions. All righty, next question is, and I think Dean Mensah touched on this already, but, and I'll just kind of elaborate. The question fully is, should the style of the personal statement be completely formal, or can we include some form of personality / humor? It does not have to be formal. It does need to be genuine, authentic. It needs to be your writing. And absolutely, we would like to see some of your personality. Be careful with humor, because what's funny to you may not necessarily be funny to others. So I do caution people on humor, but we do want to see you coming through in that particular personal statement.
Just, I would say in the back of your mind, remember though that you are applying to a professional school.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
We'll read that, and I think everyone who's reading your application has been to law school, so.
Yes. That's a good point to make, particularly at the University of Houston. Everyone reading their application has been to law school. And that's the case for most of the schools. We can't really, at least I can't really speak on that, but I don't know if you noticed the distinction when my colleague at the University of Texas was talking and versus when Dean Mensah explained who actually reads the applications. It's a little different at the two institutions, so hopefully you picked up on that. Next question was, I'll take this, Dean Mensah, pretty quickly. I was recently rejected by the University of Houston Law Center, but my question is, do you all have a date in mind when you will be scheduling appointments for the individuals who plan to reapply? If so, will we receive a separate email to schedule an appointment? Actually, in your letter, you should have received information about our reapplicant counseling process. And we do have that information on the website where you can schedule appointment yourself. We won't be reaching out to you. We start taking those appointments mid-July, and the appointments will be scheduled for the first week of August. It is a telephonic appointment, so I would just encourage you to keep checking the website so that you can see when you're able to register, but about mid-July for that. Next question. I'm sorry.
And the reason we really want you to schedule that in advance is so that we have the opportunity to review your application again and give you some thoughtful feedback. When we have students just call on the phone and want to talk about it, you know, we receive over 2,000 applications, and so to be able to give thoughtful feedback, we need an advance notice and time to review.
Okay. Got another one for you, Dean Mensah. Let me kind of paraphrase this for you. I've taken the LSAT. I've struggled to score above 155, 157. My undergraduate GPA is 3.5. I have a master's degree. I want to apply fall 2020 part-time. Is the applicant pool too competitive to apply this late in the cycle?
So especially since you were talking about the part-time program, I would say no. So, well, for one thing, let me mention, we have extended our deadlines for both the full-time and part-time program. So August 1st is the very last day you could apply to either of those programs. So you definitely still have time. In the past, you know, prior to COVID, and our regular deadlines for part-time would have been May 15th. So you're still even within, you know, what would have been our normal deadline for the part-time program. And since it's a later deadline, then we know applicants will be taking later LSATs. So June LSAT and even July is the last LSAT we'll take for this cycle for both full-time and part-time. So you're definitely not too late. The part-time pool is, I would say, it's still very open. We haven't admitted a lot of students for the part-time program yet because it is a kind of a later deadline in the cycle. So I would say, you know, you definitely still have an opportunity to apply. In the question, you didn't ask this question, but in the description, it mentioned that you have a master's degree. And that is something generally for anyone that has any sort of master's degree or education beyond a four-year bachelor's degree, we will take that into consideration as well. It's not as the same comparison as undergraduate. Not everybody has a master's degree, so we can't quite evaluate it apples to apples as we would an undergraduate cumulative GPA. But we will look at the master's, particularly if it's, you know, obviously it's going to be closer in time. The grades are going to be closer in time to when you're applying as opposed to undergrad. And if you've done really well and showed success in a graduate program, that is helpful to your application.
Okay. I have two more questions, Dean Mensah, and we've closed the hour. We'll take questions at this point, and we're going to conclude with these two. I know that the University of Houston Law Center scholarship money has already been used up. I'm on the wait list and have submitted letters of continued interest to demonstrate that I would attend the University of Houston Law Center upon being admitted. Should I send an additional email saying that I would attend University of Houston Law Center even without receiving scholarship assistance to display my commitment?
Honestly, I do think that that would be helpful at this point. As you said, we pretty much exhausted the scholarship budget. I mean, we will continue to review the scholarship budget as the cycle plays out. We know that we will potentially lose some students for various reasons. And so some scholarship funding may become available again, but it's a tight budget at this point. And so if we knew that you were 100% committed even without scholarship, that's helpful information for me to know.
Okay. And our last question, take that question, and it's how do you release admissions decisions? We notify you in two ways. First is an email, and then if you're admitted, we will snail mail, if you will, a letter via United States Postal Service.
Actually, if you think about it, there really is a third way as well, because there is an online status check.
Yes, absolutely.
You can check your status online to see, but with decisions, I mean, I place the decisions and send the emails pretty immediately, so the chance that you would check your online status checker before you get an email from me are very low. But you can still check it for some reason. You know, there are times when students don't receive the email because it goes into a junk folder, goes into a spam folder. So that's another way for you to check on your own.
Okay. Now, really it. Someone snuck in a last question. I'm going to go ahead.
I have nowhere to go.
We've actually kind of answered it already, but I do want to give that person this courtesy. I'm applying to law school right now. My LSAT is under the median for UH Law Center, so I plan to take another one in July. Will you give more weight on the higher one, or will you take the average? Answer, we take the higher. Yeah, I'm studying post-baccalaureate program at the University of Houston downtown right now. I expect to graduate next summer. If I will apply for law school in 2021, which GPA will you give more weight? The bachelor's GPA or post-baccalaureate? We look at your undergraduate GPA.
Okay.
And I think that's it for sure. I do want to thank Dean Mensah again for this wonderful idea of having this panel. And again, I've already thanked my colleagues who've signed off. I definitely thank all of the students who've hung on the line, who are obviously interested in the University of Houston Law Center. We've got 34 people still hanging with us. If you have more questions about our program, please check out our website, schedule a time to talk to one of our admissions officers. Right now, take a virtual tour, sit in on a class that's been recorded. And when COVID-19 is gone and we get back to some sense of normalcy, we will welcome you on campus with open arms. So again, thank you so much for joining us.
And when you go to the website, you know, we do have more online sessions scheduled. We'll probably schedule a few more just kind of until things get really comfortable and we can gather in large groups again. But we put so much on the website now that's virtual for you so that you can get, you know, some idea of and feel for our community and what the law school is like. Like she said, photo tours, and there's a library tour, and you know, there's classes that you can watch. These were classes that were recorded last semester, so you're actually in the classrooms you would be in. So there's a lot you can see from our website just to give you a feel until we can all be back on campus again. But thank you again all for attending. I will send out an email with contact information and links to our websites and all that great information. Probably not till Monday because I'll need to get with my IT people and make sure I've got everybody that I can send out the email. But you will get something from me shortly.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everybody. All right. Go Cougs.
Yeah, go Cougs. Yeah, I got my shirt on.
Me too.
But it's got on.
You got my shirt on too? Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Bye-bye.